In one corner, the elusive, the iconic Mariah Carey. And in the other corner, the fierce, the flawless, the one and only Beyonce.
Still don't know what.
How will we determine the victor of this showdown? How do we determine who has the chops? Well, it just so happens that I am an opera singer, a vocal coach, and a massive fan of both of these singers. So no matter who wins the battle to the death, we're all gonna be winners here.
All right, let's get started.
Round one, fight!
First, we have to talk about articulations, because without them, you're just not going to be able to choose which note in a phrase is the most important. And when you have a lot of notes in a phrase, like in a vocal run, that absence of importance just makes musical mush. Let's start with Beyonce's weapon of choice, the laryngeal tilt. That one's nice. I like that one a lot. This is how Beyonce achieves such voluptuous curves in her musical phrasing. Because without this, you might as well just have a glissando. And since Beyonce isn't basic, she often uses this technique, the laryngeal tilt, to shape her phrasing. She performs a quick tilt of the thyroid cartilage. This tilt stretches out the vocal folds. This large bone right here is your thyroid cartilage. And when the cricothyroid muscles contract, this tilts this way. And these are your vocal folds. They're attached to the thyroid cartilage. So when the thyroid cartilage tilts forward, your vocal folds will stretch. And when the vocal folds stretch, they become more taut, which means more breath pressure builds up underneath them before the folds open. This pressure condenses the air particles in the air, and that's where we get more volume. It's called sound pressure level. More pressure is hitting your ears because of the density of the air particles. It's one of the more standard ways to get a nice attack on a note. Watch how she mimics a blues guitar riff with this technique. And this technique is remarkably difficult for those who are not well practiced in it. The H sound. It might seem simple, but for Beyonce, it's the basis for a dramatic attack, specifically what's called an aspirate abrupt. The ho sound is treated as a consonant. What it is it's a puff of air that rapidly closes the vocal folds. So when you get a really hard ha, you get a full-on sound effect where you get an attack of the note. And while all that stuff is cool, while all that stuff happens in the throat, there's yet another trick that Beyonce uses. In fact, it's quite popular in pop music. A lot of people are doing this run where they use their jaw thing to get an attack on the note. And that's not just for show, it's a form of articulation. You see, the vocal folds are really tiny. And so you have this big thing where you move it real fast. It's kind of like tapping your larynx a little bit. You know, this big thing moving will affect the small thing, the vocal fold. And while people make fun of it, it's a lot more subtle than shaking your fist in the air and asking why you don't have more talent. Oh my God. Beyonce uses these 3 different techniques and a lot of others to create really dynamic musical phrases in her runs. Electronic music producers can create any sound imaginable. Meanwhile, a singer only has their own body, but that doesn't stop Mariah from switching through 7 different styles of articulation in 8 seconds. Because why? Why would she just be normal and human, huh? Doesn't she know I have a fragile ego? Look at this. This one phrase alone. It starts with a flip, which into falsetto, which in itself creates a vocal attack, an articulation. Then she uses standard laryngeal movement, which is the more common way to articulate the note, right? The laryngeal tilt. Then she sneaks in a bend like a guitarist, adds an aspirate. Now she's adding jaw movement, just for another layer of just a little sprinkle of rhythm. She even implements glottals for dramatic stops. What's important here is that the combination of things that Mariah is doing is really interesting. It's not better or worse than. It's not better that Beyonce uses a single ingredient or 3 ingredients, whereas Mariah can use a smorgasbord, the whole spice cabinet, right? But it's noteworthy. This time the pun wasn't intended, but I'll take it. So much happens in a Mariah Carey run. But in this particular instance, I wanted to point out one thing. Aside from the laryngeal movement, the breath control, the vowels, there's something else at play here. That subtle jaw movement, that's a tool. And she's using it slightly different from Beyonce. While there are folks who add that jaw movement for a little bit of an attack, Mariah is using it in a different way to not only add an attack on the note, but also to adjust and change the frequencies in which the sound is coming out. Because when you move your jaw, you're adjusting your vocal tract, which is what creates vowels, which is what shapes sounds. And so not only are we getting an attack in the beginning of the note, we're changing its tone quality. So far we've covered techniques that both Mariah and Beyonce use. They use them differently, but this next one, this is unique to Mariah. In singing, good vocal fold closure is a fundamental goal for a robust sound. And it is for that reason that vocal nodules are so damning to singers, many opting to get surgery. If you have vocal nodules, your vocal closure is physically blocked in certain parts of your range, resulting in sometimes you even singing 2 notes at a time. And sometimes clean vocal closure is impossible, and you will have a breathy sound. But in some of those situations, the vocal folds are prone to flipping open. And Mariah uses this supposed impediment to her advantage. She allows the flip. She allows the airiness on purpose. The resulting flip becomes an intentional articulation of the note. She turned a physical limitation into a signature percussive sound. It's the ultimate example of artistic adaptation. It's not working around a limitation, but transforming it into a strength. And for me, that's inspiring.
We've seen 2 titans go at it. Beyonce lands her blows with surgical precision, and Mariah counters with a fluid, multifaceted assault, turning physical limitations into percussive strengths. But a battle isn't just about landing punches. It's about the style in which they're thrown. Who has the greater control over the quality of their sound? Let's find out in round 2.
Round 2. Fight!
What do you do when you want to pare down your sound and be a little bit more subtle? One of the things you can do is you can raise your larynx. And Beyonce uses this technique in such a masterful way. She will raise her larynx, which thins the vocal cords. It also makes it easier to hit high notes without the intensity of a full belt. But it's not just about hitting the notes, it's about the journey. Beyonce alternates between laryngeal height, high and low, to create a vocal shading of sorts. She'll start with a lowered larynx for a rich, warm tone, and then raise it for a brighter, more brittle tone. So we're going to alternate between the laryngeal heights. And the result of this physiological phenomena is a musical one. By manipulating the larynx, she's not just changing pitch, she's changing the emotional color of the phrase, of each note. But that's not the only way that she changes her tone. This flap right here, at the back of your throat, that's the soft palate. One of the first things you do when you study singing is you learn about it, and you learn to lift it, and in classical music, keep it lifted. But while Beyonce is classically trained, she's also a fucking rebel. She don't need no man. Beyonce does what Beyonce wants to do, and sometimes Beyonce lowers her soft palate for effect. A beginner learns to lift and lower the soft palate. But there's more than one moving part to the soft palate. In fact, there's 3. There's the middle, and there are 2 sides. And if you dome your soft palate by letting the 2 sides droop just a little bit, you blunt some of those higher frequencies from coming out your mouth, which gives a more intimate tone.
You're like a dream come true.
The entire vocal instrument is flattened and squished to keep the vocal folds stiff. So stiff, in fact, that the mucosal lining may not even vibrate. Now, the stiffness has to be carefully controlled. Otherwise, it would sound terrible. It's a feat of muscular engineering that results in the whistle register. And you can even hear her prepare for the whistles by contracting these muscles on a preceding vowel. She sets herself up. I mean, this is just hard enough to do at all, let alone to do during a run. And then on top of that, here's the thing, okay? One of the primary ways a singer shapes their tone quality is through how they shape their throat, how their vowels, right? And there's some other bits and bobs, right? But when you're contracting and basically just whatever that is, compressing the crap out of the inside of your neck, it's not like you have a lot of control or options, so you'd think. And yet, Mariah has an arsenal of different tone qualities that she uses in her whistle register. So there are moments where it's valuable. And that's the point, is that Mariah it's not a gimmick for her. She's using it as a legitimate artistic tool just to make us all feel bad, right? Because she can't make music without it being about me, okay? Selfish, fragile. And Mariah is capable of not just some of the most beautiful sounds. I think the tone quality of Mariah's voice is exceptional. But she's also willing to get a little nasty, get a little nasally. Adding nasality in a run can actually make it easier to move around. You see, when you're drooping your soft palate, which will open your nasal passages, it's like an air dump. Remember when I said that you put that air through with the huh sound and your vocal folds come together? Well, more air results in thicker folds, and those don't move as quickly. So by adding a little nasality, you actually can move around a little bit faster. It also gives you this kind of nasty little bite sound if you so want it. But what's clever here, I just want to point this one out. Remember how I said when you droop your soft palate, you open your nasal passages, right? Well, if you droop it too much, it actually can become a little bit of an obstruction and flatten the pitch. What if you used that? And that's exactly what she does here. It's 200 IQ. A lot of this, what we've been talking about, is manipulating frequencies. And we've talked about the soft palate, but actually the microphone can be used for this as well. The power to project over an orchestra takes over a decade to learn, because it's not just about being loud, it's about controlling the frequencies and even highlighting select frequencies in your voice. And so we've already discussed how you do it with your vocal technique, but now let's talk about how you do it with the microphone. So it's not an outrageous thing to have seen someone pulling back a microphone when they don't want to be as loud, right? But you can also use the proximity of the microphone to boost lower frequencies, which is much harder to do. And Mariah will do this in combination with adjusting her vocal tract, specifically pursing her lips a little bit. This elongates the vocal tract and works similar to how like a trombone would work. By lengthening the instrument, you get more lower frequencies, at least louder. And so while Mariah is definitely a higher voice and doesn't have a robust low, she's using this combination of manipulating of the vocal tract and the proximity effect to boost her low end so that her notes don't vanish. Coordinating all of this stuff, it's like a conductor. It's so hard. You have to keep both in mind. Is the making of the music, is to make these things so easy and so matter of fact for you that when it comes time to actually sing and make the music, that you don't even have to pay attention to it.
Final round. Fight!
In the war of tone quality, the battlefield was fierce. Beyonce demonstrated a masterclass in physiological sculpting, changing the emotional color of each note by manipulating her larynx. Meanwhile, Mariah returned fire with her mastery of resonance, from the impossible physics of the whistle register to the intimate sound design of her soft palate. So now we talk about dynamic and expressive control. We're looking at sheer power and breathtaking softness, and the emotional arcs they create using those tools. So who can command the volume? Who can command the intensity to truly move an audience? Let's find out. But anyway, this is why it's so impressive that she has such excellent dynamic control on her belts. And the transitions into the belts, oh my God, the transitions are buttery smooth. And the level of control of something that is so fundamentally just this loud by default is phenomenal. But there's more than one way to do this. There's more than one way to control your power. Vowels are a fundamental part of singing. So fundamental, I would say that it's like paint. Even black and white paintings need black and white as colors. You cannot paint with a single color. Notes are alive, and Mariah uses her vowels to paint. On a single sustained pitch, she'll modify the vowel, starting with a mouth shape to perform a crescendo and then a decrescendo, all by morphing that vowel. It's also an important tool for emphasis. She morphs her vowels on certain notes to make them brighter and to give those runs legato, so they sound like they're going somewhere. So many people focus on hitting a note. Mariah doesn't hit notes, she sings them, because she's a bad bitch. She's giving you an arc to guide you through the phrase, and in doing so is also able to control her dynamics. Because the reality is that all of the tools we've covered are used by both artists to certain degrees and to various degrees of success. However, it's how they choose to specialize in these tools to create musical choices. That's right, folks, we're going to talk about musicianship, the art, the craft. This is where legends are truly defined. Beyonce has an affinity towards Arabic-inspired motifs. She weaves scales that have very close intervals so that she can weave around very dynamic and outside of the key chords. That sort of wiggle that's idiomatic to Arabic freestyle vocals. She's not just wiggling. This whatever that is, like that all has to be based on the chord that she is singing over. She's not using this as a novelty. She's respectfully weaving it into her vocal styles. And the process in which she makes this style her own, the reason it is inspired, is because she's using the scale called Hungarian minor, which is the scale of choice in Western composition to be evocative of Arabic music. What you're going to see here is that when I ascend the scale doesn't sound as good on the chords, but when I descend, it does. And that's because when I ascend, I'm not landing always on chord tones, but I am when I'm descending on the Hungarian minor scale. Do, re, mi, fi, sol, la, ti, do, ti, la, so, fi, mi, re, do. And so she uses what are called chord tones. As the chords and the harmonies move along, she's picking and choosing different parts of a scale that is quite obscure. This isn't your do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Hungarian minor is do, re, mi, fi, sol, la, ti, do. That's some weird shit. And so to know where you are in the music as the chord is playing while also understanding where you are in your scale, that's a lot more than just a simple wiggle. It allows her to get those chord tones that are so crunchy and incredibly satisfying. And she's moving around in those scales on those chords using the articulations to emphasize the important notes. And sometimes she'll be bad. She'll be naughty. She'll sing something that sounds wrong, but it feels right. And she does it on purpose using dissonance. And she'll do this even when she's not using Arabic-inspired runs. She will take notes that are next to each other in the chord, but it'll make sense because they're chord tones. Ooh. Oh, fresh. For these dissonances, these close notes to make sense, they need to be backed by harmonies that are also crunchy and dissonant. Ordinarily, most music, we're using what are called triads. There's 3 notes in the harmony. But when Beyonce likes to splash in that dissonance, she's using extended harmony. And as you can see, with extended harmony, there are notes that are close together. Generally speaking, 2 notes next to each other, that's unattractive. But the reason why when Beyonce does it, that those 2 notes together work, is because they're chord tones within extended harmony. The mark of a good musician is that not all notes are created equal. And so how does she choose what matters versus what doesn't when singing a run? Mariah considers the 4 elements of music: melody, harmony, timing, better known as rhythm, and tone, also known as timbre. When she has to be mindful of the window of time, she has to communicate all of these things. And so the core difference is that many can sing scales, right? Many can do that, but she's phrasing. Similar to the rainbow. She's not here to show you the vocal equivalent of quadruple axel. She's here to communicate something as an artist while doing the vocal equivalent of a quadruple axel. And so my preference for who wins the battle of the vocal run, for me, my choice, Beyonce.
Beyonce.
I'm gonna get so much hate, don't dox me, please. And I do read all my comments, by the way. Until next time, I'm Lesage singing, and the lambs are gonna murder me.